Hello, everyone out there. Sorry, running a little bit late tonight, but some of the usual suspects can't make it, and that's bound to happen, especially as we get a little bit of recovery and reactivation from dealing with COVID for the better part of a year and a half. But we do have Dr. Elliott on the line, so we have one that's familiar with the space. How you doing, Dr. Elliott?
Good.
Um, Yeah, we're gonna be missing quite a few people. I know I was notified that some of them had stuff to do, and a couple other people are just gonna watch on YouTube and so on and so forth. But the topic remains the same, and we'll just have a more intimate discussion amongst a few people, if that's okay. So tonight's topic was basically what have you learned about yourself during the season of COVID? Um, I think if you didn't spend a little extra time with yourself during these last few months, like last year and some change, thinking about how fragile we are as people, as human beings, is dealing with things that are out of our control. In this case, a situation where I don't know, I call it a virus or some type of thing that we've never seen before that we had to deal with, and get new vaccines that were made really fast and hope that they do what they're supposed to do. But I think it also afforded us a time for some self-reflection and a time to really take in and understand that life is precious and tomorrow's not promised to anyone. So tonight I kind of just wanted to have a more laid back show and be less political or wrestling with ideas around race and things. Just kind of have a conversation about what you acknowledged about yourself during COVID and what you discovered about yourself, what other interests you might have found, things of that nature. I'll begin, and if time permits, I have a clip that I'll play later, and I'm actually fairly happy that you're able to join, Dr. Elliott. We've had discussions around, well, in some cases, around different ways of viewing life. Your human rights class was along the lines of dealing with things that I like in terms of philosophy and ideals about the existence that we have from the moments that we're here. So Seneca is one of my favorite people to talk about Stoicism, and I think the circumstances of COVID kind of amplified my ideas around Stoicism, Epicureanism, and things of that nature. Just the various ways of kind of processing what life is via philosophy. So I'm glad you're here. I have a clip of some Seneca quotes that I was going to play at some point. It's rather brief, but before I do that, I'll start with one of the things that I thought, well, that I noticed during this COVID season about myself, was that I needed to take breaks, like really hard stop, unplugging breaks. As much as seemingly we got more time because of the circumstances of COVID, and being less social, less things to do for a while. Sometimes you just got to sit and be quiet and maybe just not read that book that you're supposed to be reading, and you have some interest in. Maybe just veg out on a little TV or some other form of entertainment, play a video game, stuff that you might not do on the regular, but to get a little escapism. So I just and that's breaks for me. I just felt like it's okay to take a break or two. Dr. Elliott, any thoughts or specific things that you learned or decided you needed to readjust or reassess in your during your COVID season?
Well, that's a big question, Felton. And There's so many good and bad things that happened. For one, it was too long. I think that I knew I needed a break, and in a sense, it gave me and my family time to like step out of life and reassess things. But it was a long break. It was too long, and we need people too. Um, you know, the weird thing is, as a family, I think we got closer. I think probably a lot of families, either had to confront conflicts or you know uh, um, get used to each other in ways that during normal rush of life you can just everybody's got their routines, everybody's settled into things. I got a couple of teenagers, and before COVID they actually used to fight like cats and dogs. And that doesn't happen anymore. Like we kind of learned how to like have fun with each other, and also realize that life is short. I think that was another realization, because I mean we lost people and we almost lost parents, and you know realize that hey, every moment is not going to last, and as a family, kids grow up, they go on. So you got to appreciate what you got while you got it and live in that moment, you know.
Absolutely. I think a big part of this whole thing is just giving us time to reassess what's important and how unnecessary certain things that we might have thought were worth fighting over or arguing about, or standing on and making your point like it was the last point that ever was going to be made. How it's okay to just hey, it's not that big a deal. It kind of did just restructure the important things, I think, and that's good to hear. I imagine two teenage boys would be a little problematic,
Yeah,
which is good at the same time as probably nerve wracking.
yeah,
Another thing personally, and what I just want to do is just feel free to make it a conversation. If something I say sparks you to say something else, then let's talk about it. But patience is something I think that resonated with me during this time period, because there was nothing we could just do to make it feel better immediately. So I just decided, this is a practice in patience, and not the type where you are not functional, where you're waiting on the clock to hit a certain number or the bus to come and it's late, but the functional type patience where you have to move as if it's going to be over at some point, but you still don't. You realize that you can't rush it. You have to take your time. What's going on, Jay Dwayne? I have to talk to you, man. We have you have an event coming up this weekend, and we need to talk about that, because Fuquay is a place I'm familiar with down at Fuquay Arena. He's doing a June. He has some affiliation with a Juneteenth event that's going on down there. But yeah, man. Speaking of which, the opportunity to get back to people. There are some functions that are taking place over the weekend, and I don't have a direct list. I know there's another event in High Point on Sunday concerning black men. There's some type of a gathering taking place there. If Brother Mike was here, he would tell us a little bit more about that. But getting back to people, man, being outside in closer proximity, yeah, that it had to be patient for that to take place. Not that I'm a social butterfly, but just to be able to have a drink at a bar, or sit down in a cafe, or have some lunch or something. What else do you think was critical to you enduring this process? And I'm sorry, Dwayne, you could put that back up real quick, Daniel. We have a networking event youth tomorrow and a main event on Saturday. Yeah. So good to know, Jay Dwayne. Feel free to share that information, and Daniel can put it up. And we will get together. But Dr. Elliott, what do you think? Why do you think you persevered the way that you did through this? And I've I've actually had 2 classes with you during the course of this thing, so it's almost been like a year, and I don't think you stopped at all in the way that you instructed prior to to COVID.
I sure am tired of Zoom though. But yeah, it's been a lot of talking to students over Zoom. I love talking to my graduate students and Felton, especially you guys don't turn off your cameras on me, but the undergraduate students, they're always just a black box there. So many of them, So I'm tired of that part of the Zoom.
Or the ceiling fan, or just some blurry image that you don't know what it is, and then you'll see a person pop into the screen and they go out of the screen. So.
That's true. There's worse things than the black box. Sometimes I want them to turn off the background. But yeah, I just kept going. You know what I mean? I didn't have a choice. So I just kept trying to do what I do. And, with some success with some groups and less success with others, but you got to do with what life throws at you, You know what I was thinking of, Felton, since you mentioned Juneteenth, I want to hear something about that from you, because before COVID, you were taking a class with me on American nationalism. And one of the things I remember we are all talking about one day was there's no national observance of emancipation, right? Probably like one of the most pivotal events in American history. And we were talking about how that would change, how that could change, or what day would be used. And Juneteenth was just thrown out as one of a couple of different possibilities. But I think at that time, I certainly wouldn't have thought that would become a federal holiday anytime soon. So times change quickly.
You have, I guess, the catalyst for all of this. And the conversation remains the same. Let me say that before we go on, Dr. Ellie. We're still just talking about getting through COVID, and this was part of that process for me. We continued in a learning atmosphere. So you have George Floyd's death being the catalyst for so much, and as unfortunate as that was, it brought the attention that had lagged because we had regular everyday life taking place, nonstop. But COVID slowed things down, and everybody really had to pay attention to what was taking place. Look how fast that trial went for the officer, Coven or whatever the name is, that was actually kneeling on his neck. Mm-hmm. But so I know you and everybody that listens to me talk on here, I'm very, very hesitant to celebrate symbolism when it's not a tangible thing. And I think the 4th of July works just fine. You're aware as a historian that, Black people embraced that day very much so after emancipation. So Juneteenth is not problematic. It's worthy of observation. It has its place, and its place to me remains out west, where it originated, where it seemingly was. Texas, where it was founded. Not to diminish it. Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt.
No, go ahead.
But some of your listeners might not know that before slavery ended in the United States, free Black people in America celebrated Emancipation Day on August 1st, because that was the British emancipation. August 1st celebrations of emancipation lasted into like the 1880s, right? So there was like this other holiday. It was specifically not celebrating the 4th of July. It was celebrating August 1st instead. But it dissipated after emancipation, and July 4th became the one summer celebration.
Yeah, and what was the other? Was it because it was a celebration attached to Haiti at one time too? I remember from one of our readings. Yeah, I mean, there's nothing, and I mean, absolutely. Thanks, Jay. Absolutely nothing wrong with recognizing triumphant moments, recognizing things that are worth celebrating. But I think we're reaching a point in terms of Black American life where it is just becoming too easy to not really deal with the meat of the issues and problems that exist in the Black American communities. And Juneteenth being a federal holiday is not anything tangible for those Black American communities. A lot of people didn't even know what it was. I myself knew, but it was nothing that I thought was significant or raised to the level of let's make this a national holiday. But this is what happens when you don't deal with the things that you should deal with. You just find something to prop up and say, "Hey, aren't you guys happy we did that?" So, and thank you for that, Jay. We'll put it in the comments if you don't mind. Don, you put it in the comments so people can be aware. Fuquay Varina is a very beautiful place. I have some friends that recently moved there, and I think it's one of those occasions where a small town atmosphere is pretty welcoming. So I advise anybody that can make that trip to make it. But yeah, good question, Dr. Elliott. I mean, if there's going to be something that comes along with that, which I doubt.
If Republicans supported it, that it's not coming with much.
And it makes me think, man. Go ahead. What were you saying?
Oh no, I was just going to say, in the short term, of course, it doesn't seem like much, but I could imagine in the long term, if something's done with the holiday, like I don't think anybody knows how to celebrate it or what to do, right? What could be done? There's endless possibilities. It could catch on and become something significant. Yeah. It's not. It seems like not much of a win right now.
There's even these debates over the flag that should be used and all of this other stuff to celebrate. So it shows you that stuff can get done, right? Like the Asian hate crime bill, you can get stuff done. But what gets done, in my opinion, in my observation, for Black Americans, is always a little less tangible, less real, in terms of what is needed in Black American communities. Asian hate crime bill gets passed with one dissenting vote, but that's a tangible thing. That's a measure of protection. So I draw that line back to when Reconstruction ended, and before Reconstruction ended. I'm sorry, when the Union troops were in the South, and Grant was like, you protect Black Americans at that time at all costs. And there was like safety. So after a year and a half of some behaviors that were encouraged by the leader of the free world at the time, there's legislation passed like that. And look how long it took to get an anti-lynching bill. So there's a complete imbalance. And with this even being understood, hey, what is Juneteenth going to do? And like you say, Republicans being on board is like, oh, wait a minute. But I remember how much they were against the MLK holiday. So how far have they come in understanding that it's not really anything? You're not giving them anything, really. So yeah, I digress. Another thing I picked up on during my COVID season, I often mention resilience, and I mention it to the youth that I work with NC 100, NC Leap, and I mention it a lot to the students I TA'd for at UNCG under you, Dr. Elliott, and previously under Dr. Rupert. I don't think that enough can be said about students continuing to function, especially when they're freshmen, this is their first exposure to college life, and they still keep going in spite of it. I think that's worth celebrating. And I say it like in the highest regards when they don't take the easy route, when they stick and stay. So I want to give them credit for that. I did happen to read through some of my evaluation, the surveys from my students, and it was a really good feeling. I don't think I can say much about that, but it was a really good feeling to know that they appreciated me being there as much as I appreciated them being there. So that's a sign of maturity. Yeah, thanks for that, Dr. Elliott. Any observations you made, and they can be with your sons, since you do have young people in school, and one that I know has gotten into college, and you're super proud about that. But did you pick up on any ways that that you were impressed by how resilient they were?
You know, I felt terrible, honestly, for my older son who graduated this year, but lost so much of his senior year, and all the things that go along with it. In the end, they did finally have a senior prom, but it was, a masked senior prom with social distancing. And so it was not quite the same thing. But yeah, he didn't get down though. He stuck with it. Both my sons thrived in the classroom, which was a pleasant surprise. Especially my younger son had never been much into academics, and COVID actually helped him because he couldn't lose papers. Everything was organized. We can make sure that he was actually paying attention in class. A lot of people didn't have that luxury. We're working from home. We're not frontline workers. I get to work from this office. So I can make sure in the other room, he's up, he's tuned into class, look over his shoulder, see that he's done what he's supposed to do. And so it turns out having mom and dad over your shoulder is real good for your grades. So his grades went up, but I know that was not the case for a lot of people, a lot of his friends who I imagine didn't have that, they're a lot of students who probably lost like a whole year's worth of learning, much less what their grades were. I think for the most part, they ended up passing them all through, but you lost the learning that you could have had,
Yeah, there's go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, so on the whole, that I was glad for mine that they made it through okay, but they missed out on a lot in life. You only get to be a senior once. You only get to do a lot of these things one time. My son lost most of his basketball season as a sophomore, and you don't get those things back. So it was tough.
Yeah, that's something I definitely paid some attention to. Fortunately or unfortunately, I don't have to deal with that as intimately as you do. But yeah, man, just but on the reverse of that, like I was stating earlier, seeing how they just dealt with it. I mean, I was impressed, and I definitely give them credit. And like you say, looking at how important those things were to us in our youth, and how nonchalant you might go, you might not, but it was an option, and them not having the option kind of changes, the way I look at their lives at this point, and having lived through this situation and what we would consider the prime of their lives. But yeah, man, I have a lot of admiration for these young people persevering through this thing. Danya, what did Jay say? I know you had a comment up a moment ago. Let's see if we can revisit that. Say, yeah, these are distractions from the real issues. Though it is appreciated, it still doesn't address the needs of Black. Yeah. So yeah, he's back. He was speaking about the Juneteenth recognition of being a holiday, and that, back to that briefly. So much of this in my mind, and I was having a conversation yesterday about this, and Dr. Elliott, not to be too political, but representation matters in all of this. And it's just mind-boggling to me that there's seemingly no representation for Black communities in those hollowed halls that would give pause to things like this instead of rushing to immediately celebrate them and pass them. Just to have a quick history moment, I know you're aware more so than I in the particulars of post Reconstruction and again during Reconstruction when we had a number of Black men who were active and elected members of elected representatives. I had that picture up. I talked about him briefly last week. I remember one of them. I think his name was Hiram Rebels or something like
Rebels,
that.
yeah.
Yeah. So, real brief. Is there anything that you have, and it's not to put you on the spot, off the top of your head concerning those matters, where they were speaking specifically to issues that Black Americans were dealing with coming out of slavery? Is there anything that you maybe could just mention briefly? And I'm not putting you on the spot, so feel free to not do so. But like, I know they were dealing with the fact that Black people needed land. Black people needed farmland. And
Right.
So is there anything that you can mention specifically? And I'll take something from it, and that I'm making my point after that. Is there something that you have?
Right. Now that's a great point. And if you were going to take Juneteenth as a moment to educate, like what would we talk about? And that's one of the things we could absolutely talk about. Like, so what did freedom mean? What did it come with? Right. And there was some expectation of land. I was actually over the weekend in Beaufort, South Carolina, where Reconstruction kind of started because that land was occupied by the Union Army during the war. And Robert Smalls lived there, a leader, of the Black community there. Once the Union Army took over, they divided up land. Black landowners they got it at a good price, and they began to cultivate that for themselves, right? And that was thought of as, okay, this would be a great solution for the entire South. The secessionists who, started a war against the Union could have their land confiscated by the government. That land could become the basis for economic independence. That was not a crazy idea at all, right? And we kind of think of it as like, oh, yeah, right. That wasn't what in the realm of possibility. But this is a time where the Lincoln administration also passed the Homestead Act that gave American families in the West 160 acres. If they went and they cultivated it for 5 years, they got title to it as a way to try and encourage westward expansion. And you can imagine, Native Americans didn't like this law and this movement too much. But that put a lot of land into people's hands who were previously landless. Now the land in the West was already owned by the federal government, but you could confiscate land. Even if you just confiscated land from, say, the 500 richest, wealthiest slave owners who led secession, that's an enormous amount of land. And that would be a good economic base to start from for a certain portion. Certainly not everybody, but even if you got an economic base for some people, right? And that was in the cards for a little while, but because of Andrew Johnson becoming president and a bunch of things, I don't want to get into all the details and bore people, that solution got pushed aside.
Yeah, right? I think about Field Order 15 is always the one that pops out. Sherman and Georgia.
The 40 acres, yeah.
Yeah, 40 acres.
Which came after this. This was even before 40 acres in the mill.
So how tangible is that, right? How understood is it that, as you alluded to with Martin Luther King has this wonderful brief, I call it a speech, but I think he's just in like a church or a classroom. He's just saying a couple words, but he's talking about the land grant colleges, the free property that was given as America expanded its borders, but also to Europeans, not to just white settlers who had been here for a little while, but to people who were coming here, and it was further solidifying a value in whiteness. They could get out fresh off the boat, and I don't remember if anybody remembers this movie called Far and Away with Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman, and they're racing out in the plains to put a stake in the ground and just claim some land. You know, nobody's been there before, right? It was just new land that magically appeared. But that fact that you were somewhere that the newer version of the American experiment was about to show some fruits and actual tangible things for Black Americans, and as you stated, it's all blown up once Abraham Lincoln's assassinated, and the secessionists, the traitors, are welcomed back into the Union, and on some terms that they negotiate, which is totally crazy. But anyway, I can't stay away from history and stuff, and we're supposed to be talking about how we're dealing with COVID. But no, very good comment, Jay. We appreciate you watching and contributing. Definitely a lot of hollowness in certain actions that come our way, and it's not with a lack of appreciation for the consideration. It is a recognition of you can't eat that, you can't spend that. So Juneteenth becomes a holiday that now, more than likely, some corporation that sells cars or gas grills or some type of commodity is going to start advertising, and more than likely, whoever owns those companies or runs those companies or sits on the boards of those companies is not going to be a Black American, but it's going to be somewhere that dollars go and flow, because now Juneteenth is this wonderful holiday that we must celebrate. My gosh. So yeah, look for the T-shirts and the Nike version of Juneteenth. Once they settle on a color scheme, it'll be another thing for you to buy and prop yourself up in. So something else I picked up on during my COVID season was having an appreciation of time and people. And I kind of wrestle with this, and it kind of lends itself to this clip I'll show in the next couple minutes, but I want your comments first. This goes into a little bit of philosophy, but I kind of embrace understanding as a principle. And what I mean by that is I put a lot of energy into truly trying to understand people or topics being discussed. So it's a principle of mine to seek understanding, which is at the core of a lot of philosophical ideas, philosophies, period. But seeking understanding as a principle. And it can frustrate people. I noticed that because sometimes people just want to say stuff and you just be okay. And they just want to go on about their business. And I'm like, no, I want to understand what you're saying. So I really want to seek understanding. That might be a little highbrow. I don't know. But Dr. Elliott, have you recalibrated in any of your ways in encountering people or topics or wrestling with ideas, or have you just remained more resigned to how you've always processed stuff? So like I said, I'm saying I seek understanding as a principle. I realize I may have done that, but I realize I'm even that much more intentional about doing it. And it's been because I've had a little bit of time inside of COVID to recalibrate a little bit. So is there any big picture thoughts you have, and if that made sense to you in your way of processing the world?
I don't know if it's changed for me, but I do think that I think a lot of people become better listeners in this format of communication. Right? It's harder to talk over each other. and people can be more patient and take their time and listen to what I have to say, and I feel like communication could have improved possibly through this time period of being stuck in our own thoughts, not having enough, time around other people. And then when we do this format, it really just allows for one speaker at a time, which in some ways is good, right? Listening is a skill that I think people don't work on enough. And, I think that makes us better when we are listening to others. We're all more interested in like what we're tweeting out, you know, um, than really taking in what other people have to say. And tweeting too is just not. It's too brief of a communication, right? It's not deep enough. Like this gives you a format to talk in more depth.
Yeah, I've got to get more functioning in social media. Yeah, I think we've found new ways to communicate, and we've become worse communicators for it in a lot of instances. Yeah, I concur. Tweeting is not the best form of best way of getting a complete thought out and being understood very well. There are moments that it can happen, but on there, it's easy to lose context. You'll have the 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 blurb that catches your attention, but you can never find why it was stated the way it was. Well, I can anyway. It loses whatever it was attached to, and yeah, it's just one of those things. So right now we're gonna begin to wind down. I'm going to play a clip of some Seneca quotes, and it's about 4 minutes or so. But Dr. Elliott, on the other side of it, we can have a brief observation of one of my favorite philosophers' observations about how to deal with life, and then we'll get out of here for the evening. But thanks for joining us, and thanks Jay for everything and putting your stuff up. I hope did you get that to the comments, Danya? Yeah, gotcha. Okay, so I'm gonna play this clip and we'll get right back to it. All right.
True happiness is to enjoy the present without anxious dependence upon the future. Not to amuse ourselves with either hopes or fears, but to rest satisfied with what we have, which is sufficient. For he that is so wants nothing. Begin at once to live. Count each separate day as a separate life. It is not because things are difficult that we do not dare. It is because we do not dare that things are difficult. We all sorely complain of the shortness of time, and yet have much more than we know what to do with. Our lives are either spent in doing nothing at all, or in doing nothing to the purpose, or in doing nothing that we ought to do. We are always complaining that our days are few, and acting as though there would be no end of them. A gem cannot be polished without friction, nor a man perfected without trials. The bravest sight in the world is to see a great man struggling against adversity. Every night, before going to sleep, we must ask ourselves, what weakness did I overcome today? What virtue did I acquire? Throw me to the wolves, and I will return leading the pack. Life is never incomplete if it is an honorable one. At whatever point you leave life, if you leave it in the right way, it is whole. We suffer more often in imagination than in reality. You want to live, but do you know how to live? You are scared of dying, but tell me, is the kind of life you lead really any different to being dead? The greatest blessings of mankind are within us and within our reach. A wise man is contented with his lot, whatever it may be. Man is affected not by events, but by the view he takes of them. As is a tale, so is life. Not how long it is, but how good it is what matters. Sometimes even to live is an act of courage. If you really want to escape the things that harass you, what you're needing is not to be in a different place, but to be a different person. Until we have begun to go without them, we fail to realize how unnecessary many things are. We've been using them not because we needed them, but because we had them. He suffers more than necessary who suffers before it is necessary. Hang on to your youthful enthusiasms. You'll be able to use them better when you are older. It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor. If a man knows not to which port he sails, no wind is favorable. Luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity.
All right, all right. So Seneca is somebody I picked up, oh gosh, a number of years ago. Marcus Aurelius, Sun Tzu, all of the wonderful philosophers and sometimes just strategists whose writings were published. But Seneca is one of my favorites. And this was something that I was always flirting with doing, and I thought tonight would be as good a night as any to just kind of think around what life is, and given the circumstances that we're dealing with and hopefully getting to the other side of, again, the fragileness of it, what it means to sit with the thoughts about living a life or trying to live a decent one. And one of the ones that I always take away from Seneca, and I definitely am not going to quote it directly, but the whole notion of sometimes you have to begin with you if you want to see things differently. So, people will change their environment, they'll move somewhere. And there was I forget which rap song it was, but the song basically says, no matter where you go, there you are. I think it was Naughty by Nature. So yeah, you can go somewhere else and you're taking yourself with you, right? So if there's something to wrestle with and something to think about, do it now. Do it while you're here and coherent, and be the change you want to see. I think that was Gandhi. So anyway, that's one of my favorite people as far as philosophy goes. I have many others, but Seneca's pretty accessible, I think, when you're looking through and getting ideas about which philosophies you might want to check out. And Stoicism is his. So, Dr. Elliott, any body you like in the annals of history as far as philosophy goes, or any codes you adhere to? I'm a big fan of having some type of code. If you care to share.
Yeah, I don't know that I have a specific. I think of Tolstoy. I think of the pacifist tradition in a way, right? Of not using force to get your way, but persuasion, It's certainly something I try to live by, that philosophers have root themselves on the idea that we are all beings that can get better, right? That we're all capable of improvement, right? And then we're all, if we work for it, and if we try to improve ourselves, and you know, uh, engage in the kind of rational search for progress, that we can achieve that. And some of that is enlightenment type thought, but I think enlightenment, informed by all of the reality that we understand now. Progress doesn't come easy. Progress is not inevitable, but it can be achieved. We just have to struggle for it. But
Yeah,
I like those Seneca quotes, especially the ones about dealing with today, dealing with what challenges you have, and what did I do to make myself better today.
yeah. You can sleep better when you can assess the day and know that you didn't do anything nefarious or try to get over on somebody or whatever is demeaning to the human spirit, the good parts of the human spirit. Yeah, you can sleep better at night when you can assess your day in that way. But yeah,
and
man,
we can't change the past, right? And we can't shape the future. We just have the present, But if
literally
you're trying to improve the present, the future will take care of itself. That's what I think.
literally said something similar last night to a group of folks I was talking to. We don't have a time machine. We can complain about when actions take place, when something is signed. It means a lot for a group of people. You can't say this should have been done 20 years ago if it's happening in the present. Let's take care of what we can now and know that we can't go back in time and fix everything. So yeah, I literally just said something similar to that yesterday. Yeah, but again, ideas around philosophies and people in history that did something that makes it to us, and is the time they took to really sit and try to understand human nature, the human condition. Machiavelli, that's another one. You got these great thinkers, and you can access their works and use it for good or evil, is what I say. Some of it is just knowing what could happen if you chose to go with this knowledge a certain way, and some of it is it gives you a level of protection because you can see a little clearer. But yeah, I'm going to get off my philosophy box. But Dr. Elliott, anything you want to add before we wrap this up? I appreciate you coming through this evening. I know it's usually a difficult night for you, but I appreciate your presence.
Yeah. I had a Thursday night off, so I was glad to be here.
I appreciate it.
But no, I don't think I have any wrap-up thoughts. Just glad that we're all surviving, and that hopefully we're all going to be back together again, and everything is going to return to some version of normality. Not to go back to what it was, but normality. And like we had coffee this morning, we get together in social places again.
Yeah, I think that's becoming more and more of a reality, and I think it's fine that we take our time doing that. I think it's okay to keep wearing your mask if you just feel like you should. I think it's okay to have gotten a vaccination and be more comfortable around other people who are vaccinated. I think we're all learning and growing and getting through this thing together. And I think we have an opportunity to be more together on the other side of this thing if we allow for it. We got to take the politics out of it. We got to take the silly notions. I've seen this magnet stuff, and that will probably be some of the things that I would normally be discussing, but I'm glad to have a little bit of a different type night tonight. But yeah, man, we got to take all of that stuff off the table. I don't know if you saw the clip, Dr. Elliott, but lady was she's at like a town hall or at a city council meeting or something, and she's trying her best to stick a magnet to her neck to show that she's become magnetized, and the magnet won't stick. Yeah, man.
I've seen some jokes about that. I didn't see that specifically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's like, tell me why this is, I mean, I'm just trying, can you tell me why? And it just keeps falling off further. Anyway, yeah, it's fascinating times we're living in. There's a lot of misinformation and disinformation, and, you know, hopefully we can get back to some levels of normalcy and some understanding that, you know, we can just do better together. And let's be patient and tolerant of one another, but let's also be smarter when we can. I appreciate you again for being here, Dr. Elliott. Thanks for chopping up the comment section, J. Dwayne Garnett, and good luck with the event this weekend. I wish I'd have caught you. I wish I knew more about this coming up a little sooner, but I was in the area for a wedding last weekend, so I know I won't make it back this weekend, but I definitely will look to connect with you down in Fuquay at some point in the near future. Danya, good job as always on the wheels. Appreciate you hanging in there also. Everyone out there in Cyberland, have a wonderful evening, and we'll see you again in 2 weeks. I'll be off next week, so we'll see you in 2 weeks. Y'all take care. Have a good one. Thanks, Dr. Elliott.